Hello, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chichester Chats. See, I got it right that time. I am Phil. Lilith is here. Kristen is here. Of course, Dan's here. But we also have a special guest, Leo Mcgovern. How are you, sir? The
Good,
letterer
I'm great.
of Rysk.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
So the first big question: how big of a slave driver is Dan?
Dan is actually really nice. We've sort of communicated a couple times. I introduced myself when I was installed as letterer for the series, and Dan couldn't be nicer. You know.
I'm
I
only
know.
mean to you guys, Phil and
Ah,
Lilith, Kristen, like you get all my brutality. I reserve my,
I am the last person to see the file, so if there's anyone he should be nice
ah.
to, it should be me.
but this is
I'm-
what this is what I was trained on. See, like the first two people I met at Marvel were Keith Williams, who's a fabulous inker, and Phil Felix, who's a gem of a human being and a great letterer from that era. And and I quickly learned, the letterers are both the most important folks and probably the people who are getting the most crap heaped on them, especially in those days when you had no digital, options. Everything was by hand, and these guys were getting, the last of the last at the last moment. So treat them well, and they'll save your ass, especially editorially. So
Well, yeah, that's was going to be one of my questions. Is since I know nothing about lettering, so are you the last guy, Leo, to work your magic on this after everyone else is gone? You know, like all the penciling and inking and everything.
yeah, absolutely. I think usually the letterer, like Dan said, is the last person to have hands on the pages before they're sent to the printer. In the cases of Rysk, I'm actually doing the final flight for them as well. So there's been a couple times I've had to liaison with the printer to sort of finagle some issues or whatever. So in this case, I am absolutely the last person to put hands on the page. But in a lot of other cases, the letterer will export their work, and then someone else will actually kind of put the book itself together. Um, in this case, I'm in all the way through, but yeah, it's like the lettering is, you know, for something that ideally is going to be unnoticed. Like you will just breeze through it and just read it and be like, "Ooh, that was an exciting comic," and I got it from front to back, and it was a breeze. Like you want to be unnoticed, sort of like an offensive lineman in football. Like the less they call my name for any reason, probably the better. But that's also a lot of responsibility as well. Like you want to make sure that, like, all the typos are caught and everything is stacked, presented the best way as possible. So in a way, it's very fun. It's kind of what I like about it a lot, is that, like, it's that pressure of get it right, get it done, get it out to the printer, and let's see it on the stands.
Yeah, I mean I think I've said that before. It's like the letterer. You guys don't get the credit you deserve because again, a lot of people don't notice until unless something's wrong, and then it's just like, oh, what happened? But if you're
And
doing
it's
all
quite
the
literally its own language, like a lot of different rules and things like that. And sometimes it changes from company to company. So I'm always
Sure.
impressed with people that work across multiple. And you're just like, wow.
Yeah, the key is consistency. That, like, even because the sort of grammar and sort of detail oriented things about comics, when to use quotes, when not to use quotes, how to figure things out. It's different than your traditional uh, prose grammar. So
Like when the bold, when I italicize for like backstory and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I thought about it and I was just like, that's too much pressure. I
right,
hate the English language.
and some of that is from a lettering perspective. Sometimes I'll get scripts and they have no bolds, no italics, no emphasis, and so it's sort of up to me to sort of kind of gauge it. the scripts for Rysk, Dan has, as the veteran writer he is, has laid it out for me to make it easy for me, because it is both sometimes a little more fun to kind of figure it out as I go, but to have that baseline there for you. And that's where Dan and I have communicated a couple of times. You know, I think, did I run the Rysk balloon style past you before I used it? I don't remember the first time we communicated.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, that's, I'll let you talk about that, but that's a very, you know, key point of what a letter like Leo, you know, does. You know, you said language before. You know, he introduced a very specific, you know, language form, you know, shape and elements to make it clear when Rysk, you know, is talking, and how we would handle that, which was very cool to see.
Yeah, denotation, connotation. I think letterers are amazing, and it's just like so funny, like how most people don't like understand what letterers do. So
Well,
I'm
I would
glad to
always
have
equate it.
a letterer on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's. I would always equate it, and you know, this. Tell me I'm wrong, Leo, but you know, I always say like it's sound in film. You know, a crap soundtrack in a film. You know, that's bad sound effects, hollow sound, bad dubbing. You know, whatever. It will jump out at you, you know, immediately, and it will take the whole movie down, no matter how good the rest of it is. And I think bad lettering, or amateur lettering or anything, you know, will do the same thing. You, as you said, Leo, you won't notice it if it's working, but when it's all there and it's in the groove and it's moving the story forward, on so many levels, it brings it all together. You know, I've told people, don't invest in, you know, some crap font and think you're going to like, you know, kern it and let it and all yourself. Find yourself a professional who knows what they're doing. You know, the cost will be very worth it.
Right.
So yeah, Leo, do you have amazing handwriting?
I have, yeah, my handwriting. So like, I basically like learned to read and write from comics. So my standard handwriting is basically comic font lettering. You know,
That's
I was
cool.
always too intimidated to do it myself and sort of go in. The idea when I was of my formative age reading comics, the hand lettering was very, very intimidating to me. It wasn't until more recently that you know, the modern equivalent became something I was interested in. But you know, what I will do, the sort of middle ground I go there is, and a lot of the sound effects in Rysk are based off of a hand-drawn alphabet I had done for the series, which is what I'll do sometimes when I'm jumping on a new book, is I'll just spend some time and write my alphabets out and then scan the ones I like. There's a program in Illustrator that will allow you to kind of create a quick basic font, so I don't have to go and like copy and paste letter forms from another file every time. But that was just, I wanted something that was slightly kind of scratchy and not perfect to kind of fit this world. This wasn't like a Marvel kind of world where, you know, your Iron Man sound effects would be like very kind of perfect energy beam sort of things like that. So I wanted something a little imperfect, a little kind of scratchy. And so that's sort of the middle ground between a little ode to hand lettering still, where it's like, I'm not hand lettering it by hand, but there are some hand drawn components to it that make it feel a little more alive, you know, and not just like a sticker on the page, or at least that's what I'm going for.
That's cool. That's interesting to know, because I wasn't sure if with digital lettering, if you're like have a tiny little skinny pen and you're like.
I think some letterers do. They won't hand letter the letters by that, but and one of the things I'm trying to get more or work towards a little bit is having like a sort of second screen where I can use the pen and draw the balloons in and make it even more organic. You know, so little things as you go along, of course.
Right, and it becomes more fluid, and you're not fighting with a piece of software. Probably, I'd imagine. You know,
Yeah.
you get.
So actually,
Are you supposed to know the rules, or do they give you like a like does each company give you like a handbook? Because like I know there's like there's like 4 different types of kind of like captions. There's like time and date and a couple of other things, but everybody kind of handles it a little bit differently.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't exactly gotten like a style sheet from a publisher or anything. It's been a little more freedom in that regard. But in terms of like the rules, like I basically what ushered me along was Nate Picos's Essential Guide to Lettering. When that came out in 2021, I believe. I had recently been sort of reintroduced to Illustrator, like modern Adobe Creative Suite. And after jumping back for a second, I'd had a lot of experience in publishing magazines and things like that. Like I published Anti-Gravity here in New Orleans for 9 years and used InDesign to create that. So I was sort of passingly familiar with Adobe products. And then in 21, when this book came out, it spoke to me. Like I flipped from like, oh, this is made easy all of the things that intimidated me before about lettering. And so I was lucky enough to have a friend who's a publisher, Jason Reeves, and like 133 Art out in California, he had grown up in New Orleans. We went to the same comic shop when we were younger. And I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into this lettering, but I need some pages. Like it's kind of hard to find the right combination of script and empty art pages that I need online to sort of get some reps. And he was nice enough to be like, oh yeah, I'm working on this graphic novel. Like, how about you do it? And I was able to go through it at my own pace and sort of get feedback from him and marry the things that I was learning from the Essential Guide to Lettering book to actual putting it on the page. And it was really fun. And unfortunately, they had an artist change like 3/4 of the way through the book, and the great news, I guess, for them was that it got picked up by an agent, but they wanted to go back to the beginning and fix that artist change and do it by a single artist. So it basically went back to the beginning, and I couldn't show anyone those pages because they were for a project that was never going to come out in that form. And so I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but going then to 21-ish, I was sort of working at the comic shop again and doing some stuff. And fast forward to 2023, I had gotten that little project done. It was sort of, learned from that. And in January 23, I decided I'm going to give this lettering thing a shot. But I need to know if I'm on the right track. And so coincidentally, in 23, the Fan Expo was here in New Orleans. And I'd sort of done a similar thing. I reached out to a friend who had a book. And I was like, hey, just let me re-letter this book for you for free. I'm not going to charge you for it. I just need pages to show, to sort of give a proof of process for myself to see if I should pursue it at all. And so he did, and that was Alma, the Last Champion, sort of the first thing that I did. So I took those pages, lettered that in a week, went to the Fan Expo, and found Jim Shooter, who I knew was going to be there. And my thought process was, I'm going to show him these pages. If he tells me it's garbage, I'll know it's garbage, and I'll know to go back to the drawing board. If he just it gives me at least a medium review, I'll know I'm on the right path. Because from everything I knew about him, I knew he was going to, no pun intended, shoot it straight to me. And so that's what I did. I went to the show. I showed it to him. And he flipped through the 20 some odd pages it was or whatever. And he told me he thought my my balloon tail should be straight instead of curved. He said they should always be pointed, which I disagreed with, but respected. And but he gave me a fairly good feedback. And so I took that to heart and went back and then sort of doubled down on my efforts, just started reaching out to people, trying to get work. And that was kind of how the ball started. But, definitely going to that show and meeting him and getting that feedback. He was really nice. Gave me his email address.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that even happened anymore.
Oh,
That's cool.
yeah, probably more with artists. Like I don't know that many letters will do that, but or I haven't seen that too much. But
he probably loved that, I would imagine. Just had the chance to kind of like, give you that feedback in that rare sense. As you said, most people aren't going to come up and ask that. So I imagine he really dug that. But and you can't get better starting feedback than from a Jim Shooter. So that's great. That's a great origin story, Leo.
Truly.
Thank you. Yeah.
Illustrate it and letter it.
Wow, that's very cool.
When characters talk in logos where they're like, this is a job for Superman, does the letterer do the logo, or does the artist have to do the logo?
So there's trying to figure out what I can say because we haven't put Risk 5 to bed yet. But let's just say there's a moment perhaps coming that will come into play. And in the general setting, so like if it's in Superman, for example, the letterer would have access to the logo files or what
Right.
DC is. I haven't been lucky enough to break into the DC world yet, but from the other letterers that I speak to, I'm in a Discord group with a bunch, and they will have guides and things like that, and so you would have access to that logo, and that's also one of those things that may be written into the script and planned for ahead of time. Like that's not necessarily a decision on the letterer's part. It could be, but
Could be an editor's decision too. They
Right.
want to like boost it. You don't know where it's going to come from.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I think you have to be choice. That has to be a very conscious choice. Kristen too, because that can work to effect, or can I think take you out of the story. In a certain way, it can really like sort of pull you out. With a boost like that. But in the olden days, they used to leave the space for it, and then the stat room, would actually kind of have the logo printed out, and then there was either provided to the letterer or the editorial group, and then they would put it down, on it.
When it was the olden days, were you working on a bigger size and then they would shrink it, or were you just working on a little tiny piece of paper and had to letter it?
No. Everything was done at 11 by 17 was the standard size, of a comic book page, which it still is, on an artboard, and then letterers would, get that usually at the pencil stage, and then sometimes the ink stage, but they would letter directly on the board. Now, if a book was late, which it often was, then the letterer would do the lettering separately on vellum, like overlays, and then the vellum overlays would be positioned over the page, and then you'd have to do two, photographic shots, one of the art page and one of the vellum overlay, and then those would have to be composited together.
How can people think comic books aren't an art form? Like, honest to goodness.
Yeah. Or you had stupid production managers in the bullpen who tried to paste, lettering balloons directly on painted artwork, which we had to stop one time. So,
especially back in the olden days, Dan, how'd you do that in the back of a covered wagon?
I know. Well, fortunately, we didn't get dysentery, so we were okay.
You survived the Oregon Trail.
We survived the Oregon Trail.
So, Leo, when there's a certain story, does the genre or the story affect your style of lettering? Like, say, it's a street level story as opposed to Risk, which is a futuristic sci-fi. How does that affect what you're gonna do?
Yeah, definitely. It starts with the font choice. Nate Pico's Blambot, is a great resource for indie creators and sort of freelancers like myself, because besides the knowledge that he has and gives away on his website, a lot of his fonts are free for freelancers to use as long as they're on indie projects. So between Blambot and Comic Craft is the other big one that we'll buy fonts from and stuff. So you get as many free ones as you can. Those start your library, and then you fill those out with other paid ones you find along the way. And so that's sort of the first part of the process, is finding like the right font. And yeah, definitely if you're doing a horror story, you want something, it's always got to be readable, and that's why you want to go with these sort of professional fonts for sure. As Dan said, many amateur has been tripped up, trying to do things out of their comfort zone, and making fonts is a very difficult process, not easy at all. And so, getting your library set up is important. So you pick the font, and then the balloon styles are the next sort of step. And we've seen a lot of change, I think, over the years, and obviously when you move away from doing it by hand and being able to digitally manipulate anything ad infinitum, and it's something that I kind of have to check myself on too. It's like, don't do it just because you can. Like, it's got to be because of the story purposes. And so building balloons for Rysk, for example, we needed some computer stuff. Like Halvide has a slightly different font not font, but balloon style that shows up, I believe, in issue 3, actually. But hopefully something that's not too distracting. You just want to make sure that everything is distinguishable. But, so, your balloon styles, like, do you want to have a thick stroke or a thinner stroke, or like a kind of scratchy stroke around it? So those sort of decisions. And then the captions are definitely important as well. Like, it's easy to get too complicated with it sometimes, and so trying to keep it simple but interesting is always a challenge. But yeah, then it sort of moves to that sound effect stage where, do I want to use a sort of standard sound effect for a lot of things? What's sort of the lore of the story? Things like that. So yeah, there's like a prep phase where all of those things are going on. That's always the longest phase. Once you hit the ground running with the styles, it's pretty straightforward.
All I have to say is, an old man is losing more and more eyesight every day. I mean, this read nice and clear, so thank you.
The Comic Sans and like adjacent fonts are actually like accessibility fonts. So like people that make fun of them, like, you're kind of being ableist. Like I love Comic Sans.
But not for comic book, Lilith. Like... No fucking way. No way. I would burn the world on that.
Yeah.
Comic Sans. There's nothing more amateur looking in a comic book.
I'm just saying, like, fonts in that style, though. Like, not necessarily Comic Sans itself, but
sans serif or...
Yeah, but people will run to Comic Sans and say, "Oh, this has comic in it. It must be good for comics." That's like the death. But I will just give more props to Leo and letterers. Nowadays, especially, it seems to me, getting back into it, there's a lot more put on them in terms of, they even have to figure out like balloon placement.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure it's different for publishers in different situations, but again, back in the day, I would get the pages back after the whether I'd done plot or full script, I would get the art pages back, and then I would do the balloon placement, based on that. This balloon's here, this caption's here, and try to arrange it like in a sequence. But in my more recent forays, it seems like that's being put much more on the letterer to have to figure out the balloon placement and run with it. Right, Leo? Is that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. That was part of what made me want to pursue freelance lettering, was that I felt that was what I could add to the process as a longtime comic reader, and sort of in an editorial type capacity, that I could accurately translate that script to the lettering based on what the artwork was doing. So, there have been a couple instances in Rysk where Mannix has drawn something slightly different from what, the script said. It may be a different panel structure, a different pacing. And so it's my job to interpret that. Like if I was just doing data entry, taking, the dialogue from the script and pasting it onto the page and not taking that into consideration, like it would be a failure. And so it's important to be able to interpret how the artist has interpreted the script, and then further interpret it to how it should read to the reader, and then put that on the page. And so, that is usually the way it is. Well, for me, I haven't had a project yet really where that balloon placement has been dictated to me. It's been sort of left up for me to figure out, which I find fun. That's what I feel like I can sort of bring to the project, is being able to look at the forest and the trees.
Right. Because you're creating the flow of the story in that arc as well.
Right. And, there's definitely, there's an ego check that has to happen, I think, for letterers, and when you're put in those positions, because I'm going to do it the way I think is right, but that doesn't necessarily, if someone has a different idea, I've got to be able to take that into consideration as well. I'm not always, just because I'm the last person to put hands on the page doesn't mean I'm the last person to have feedback on the pages in all times,
Yeah, but you kind of have to balance what everyone wants, right? Because you got to get all the words Dan wants on the page, but then it's like, I'm sure the penciler doesn't want to cover up this, or or it's going to affect the flow of the story.
Right. Yeah. And there are some times where, I might go, oh, this sound effect or this panel calls for a sound effect, and I'm going to cover up the entire panel, but I'm going to make it so that you can see the art. And there's some definite room for that. But then sometimes if the artist or the editor, whoever, is like, let's dial that back a little bit. I can't be like, I'm going to keep that no matter what, or I'm going to die on this hill. Like, let's make sure that everything is readable and everything first. You got to drop the ego a little bit.
So do these technologies that you're talking about, Adobe and that, does it make it easier than when everything was hand drawn on a comic, or is there a whole different setup? Because when you were just talking about the lettering balloon, I just suddenly had visions of, like, in Microsoft Word, where you try to stick a picture and a caption in, and then immediately everything you already did is totally screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess that it is a combination of both, right? Like, it is definitely easier in terms of quickness, right? It's possible in terms of the, the old triangle, the good, fast, and cheap. You can only ever have it two ways. You gain a lot of speed, but then you're also dealing with file exports, and like, how does the publisher want your lettering? Like, it like in Rysk, I'm the last one to mess with the files, and so I'm just exporting high-res TIFF files and putting them together into a PDF and sending that off to the printer. If, someone wants EPS files of the lettering because they're going to place the lettering over the art themselves, that's a bit of a different process. So it can be a lot trickier. And if you're not careful and know what you're doing with the final files, and you send, I don't know what the old school equivalent would have been, Dan, but like, if the book came back and it was pixelated because all the files I sent had, like, defaulted and they were just poor, that would obviously be bad.
Right.
So,
right.
and you see that sometimes. You'll find professional books from real public. I mean, and mistakes happen. You know, the things fall through the cracks. But you'll find in a big 3 comic, you're like, why is this page very blurry?
Right.
You know, or why is the lettering blurry but the art is fine? You know, something went wrong in there, and that's always the trick. You know,
right? Somebody didn't save it out, and you take on a lot more responsibility now, as you say. You're delivering press-ready files. You know, before, you know, the letterer would have been, you know, a key part of the team, but you know, they would be then sending that lettering back to the editor, and the editor is putting everything together, and that's they're responsible, you know, for that final assembly and that final sending out and that press check and everything else. So I'm sure that varies by you know, by company as well. You know, Black Box being a smaller, more independent publisher, you know, may lean more heavily on you in that instance than if you were ended up doing something for, you know, Marvel or DC or whomever.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but there is a splash page in issue 3 with that sound effect. I mean, that looks beautiful, and I mean, everything looks great. So I mean,
we can give away whatever you want. It's out. You know, go give away.
Yeah.
we want the book to sound so detail rich and exciting that people go out and buy it.
Number 5 is the secret.
Yeah.
No, yeah, just that sound effect. I mean,
it's a great shot. That's well done. And like, in the fact, you know, you look at that again, I would say, you know, you made the choice there. You know, you know, somebody could have put that sound effect, you know, horizontally across it, which might have, you know, looked like fine. But, you know, here you're following, you know, the line of the punch, you're following the line of the bodies, you know, that kind of thing. You know, it's a very conscious choice, and it's an important choice to create that right flow that a professional is going to, you know, understand. If you're an editor, you know, you're going to look at what a letterer is doing, and you're going to, you know, judge that as much on the quality of balloon shapes and the, you know, the shapes of the individual letters and how the kerning works and the choices you make for butting things up against the edge of panels or overlapping panels, or, you know, all the choices you're making there are so important to keeping the flow going.
Yeah.
I mean, it just like, again, Leo's work looks really good, but now I'm just picturing Dan sitting there saying, "What sound should this punch make? Should it be a?"
Oh yeah, that's the worst. It's bad enough when I sit here, you know, with headphones on, and, you know, and I'm saying lines out loud to see if they sound bad, but then you get the sound effect, correct, you know, flap, you know, flap or for quack, you know, or, you know, like, you know, what is it? So
don't just want to rely on pow, bam.
Yeah.
Are you saying them out loud so your wife thinks you're insane?
More onomatopoeias in comics, please.
Yeah, I mean, I already say the lines out loud. Are you talking to me? No, I'm not. It's like, you know, it's but the sound effects, you suddenly, you know, you sometimes at least I do, you know, you make them under your breath at least to sort of get a sense of, does that sound right, or is it just a needlessly complicated assembly of consonants with a couple of, you know, verbs in there.
Probably this one, you're worried about, you know, if you're on a football pool or something, it's like, okay, this is what the spread is, kids. This is
yeah, see, that was good. It's a good lesson in every issue. You know, that's
here, kids, this is how you cover this.
I have my notes to Demetrios, you know, from early on. Like, do we need like a primer of like how betting works in this book? And, you know, he never really responded, so just worked it into the story. So
I mean, I do appreciate those flashbacks because I don't know a lot about the betting world. So,
see, you'll come across this, you know, later. So,
I love it when comics or like the derived shows teach you something. Like, I always remember when I was watching the first Riddler episode in Batman the Animated Series, and Batman's like, "Oh, Riddler, it's a play on his name," and Robin says, "Oh, you know who he is?" He says, "Yeah, his name's Edward Nygma." And Rob's like, "Oh, I get it. Enigma." And I was like 6 or 7 watching it, and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool one." They taught me something.
Criticizes the guy named Batman, you know. So, like, you know.
I said as a kid.
I mean, Edward Nygma is like next level here.
No, it is. I like, that is fun.
I've said before, as a kid reading Daredevil, Dan taught me pro bono. That's the first time I remember hearing that phrase.
Lawyers, they do it for free.
Yeah, okay.
Not all of them.
But no, I was gonna say, Dan, were you like trying to like show like the dangers of like gambling addiction and stuff on that first page? Because like again, she's talking to her friends as a kid about the spread and everything, and then like the teachers are like, "Oh yeah, we want to get on this betting too." Yeah.
No, not so much. I mean, I don't really get into that like at all. I don't think that there's a little of that in like issue 1 or 2 where she sees the guy in the bar, and she's sort of I'm cutting you off. You've had enough. You're going down this road, the wrong way. But I was actually more interested in the line where she's at the Grid Rush game, and that great disasters need great distraction. The play on the Spider-Man line a little bit, but that is psychologically part of what people do and why they gamble. Is for a distraction. From real world issues, and anything. So that was kind of, that came to me as, we started to riff on like, well, what is, why is our hero a bookie, Demetrios? Like, why did you put that out there as a thought? And, the whole idea that, and everything this world has gone through with the melt and everything else, why would a bookie survive? Well, people in this awful instance, they need distractions. I mean, the damn problem with the book is Mannix has made everything look so good.
What a great problem to have.
It does. It looks fabulous, but it's almost like one step too slick, for the reality of the world. But it does, draw you in. But still, this world is a pretty, wrecked place. So I think there is an argument in that psychology of gambling, and as to why it exists and what it helps people through. And certainly from Ruby's point of view, Ruby Chance, our hero, and her AI, Rysk, gambling has been very, very good to her. She's been very good at being the odds maker even before Rysk came along, and she has profited from it. So that has financed things for her, that has allowed her to get to a certain point in her life, and now survive and help, her crew family, continue to sort of flourish a little bit.
I was gonna get back to Leo. Leo, how long does it take you to to do a page, like? Because I know some artists, what do they do? They draw like a page or two a day. Like, how long does it take to letter a page?
I think ideally my preferred speed is about 10 a day. If I can do that, like in a normal, 8 to 10 hour sort of workflow with, some breaks in between or whatever. 10, I feel like is a comfortable pace. But it ultimately take up to a week, primarily like the hardest part is kind of the data entry part of it, of like copying the text from the script and putting it on the different pages. Some letters work a little bit differently and will have, say, a single Illustrator file with 20 artboards and have each page, on every separate artboard. That always felt intimidating to me, and I didn't like it, so I just worked on a single page at a time, and then create a new file and do the second page, and it's all based on my template and everything. But that way, if Dan were to email me for some reason and say, hey, Rysk 5, page 4, panel 3, I need this text changed, I can go, I feel like that's a good workflow for me. I can go right to that page, make that change, export it as a new TIFF to my, backed up folder, and, call it a day, and then it's all good. But, some things will take longer. If I'm having to figure out balloon placement, like Dan said, that takes time, especially if there's a lot of changes from the script and the artwork. If there's a lot of interpretation to go on, then there's a lot more of reading and interpreting, and I might lay it out one way and then play around with it and then go, oh, no, that first way was better, and put it back. And then a lot of times I'll do my first draft, let that sit overnight, go back to it the next day, and then I'll be able to kind of more clearly see without being emotionally attached to, like, that's the work I just did. I can go to it and kind of rationally look at it and be like, nope, that caption box is a little bit off. Let me kind of revisit that, make those changes before I submit that first draft to the publisher. You know, the first draft that I submit to the publisher is always my second or third draft, you know. And so that process, you know, it's different if there's a deadline. If I'm given the art and the assets and everything, and that's Monday morning, and they say I need this book by Wednesday, then I'll get it done by Wednesday, you know, to the best of my ability, and we'll be able to get, you know, a finished product done. It might be 95%, and, you know, the time might not permit that final 5% of every minute detail being touched on. But, you know, I'm sure, as Dan can attest to, speed sometimes becomes the paramount ability.
Gotta ship the book. Yeah.
And so, you know, long story short, if I needed to, I could knock out a 20-page book that was straightforward in a day if I had to. I would prefer to do about 10 pages a day, you know, and that's in a freelance life, also doing other things too. Like, a lot of times the first couple hours of my day will be reading, responding to emails, checking the Instagrams and the Facebooks and whatnot, seeing if anyone's reached out to me there, or like, if someone has a collaborator created a post that I can be a part of, or, you know, all that sort of stuff that you want to do in the morning, as well as your coffee and things like that. So yeah, you know, it can be as fast as you need, or you know, I think basically if everything's all set in a row, you know, a couple days to 3.
And if you look back in the old comics, you'll find sometimes the epic inker Manny Hands, you know, would also you know, work on the lettering, which just basically meant the book was so late that everybody in the bullpen was jamming on it at the same time. So he doesn't work so much anymore. But
that's what I was going to say. I mean, I know it's still a lot of work, but is that where the technology kind of helps? Is because you just because you're not you're not physically manually, you know, your wrist every 2 seconds. Does that help with the speed a little bit?
Oh yeah, I can, you know, go from edit to new final page for the printer in 10 minutes, you know, if not less, you know. So, and whereas before, you know, if you were in the Marvel bullpen, for example, and doing those lettering, I think you had to be there. Everyone had to be there because everyone's physical assets were being put together at that place at that time.
Right.
You know, if you were doing
oh no, he froze.
You're right. You had to ask about technology, Phil. You had to ask about technology.
I know.
And the AI said, "Enough with this."
Exactly. You're giving away too many secrets. And, you know, it's the march of technology, you know, Phil, I think, too. You know, but digital lettering also, you know, undermined quite a few people. You know, I mean, I mean, that we're well past that, you know, but, you know, at the time of the transition, you know, some people's lettering styles were being ripped off like wholesale, you know, before they could sort of put a hold on it. People were scanning whatever Jim Novak style, like, you know, and creating a font, you know, based on somebody else's work. And some people just couldn't make the transition. You know, some people, it just wasn't in their mindset, their wheelhouse. They probably could have made the transition, but it was a jump, and that they fell to the wayside, unfortunately. Really good people who had been top pros, were no longer getting work because a digital lettering group could do a lot more stuff a lot faster, ostensibly cheaper, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and you see that in coloring too, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, in every instance, there was the little coloring house in Connecticut. Yep. I want to say it was. They used to do all the Marvel stuff, and then that digital coloring came along, and that one place handled all of Marvel's coloring. Like,
yeah,
that was crazy.
And then colorists became, much as you're saying, like letters, colorists became responsible for like having to push everything to like, proof. They had delivered digital print ready files, as opposed to color guides. So they were absorbing more work, and initially they got paid more, I think, too. But over the course of time, that fell to the wayside. It was like, oh, anybody can do your work, so we'll cheap out on your rate and still expect you to deliver more, more work intensive files.
Right? Capitalism.
Yes.
I was going to say, I think if you make 2 more points on coloring, Greg Wright will appear.
Yes, exactly. It's like Beetlejuice. He's
exactly,
or more like Candyman, actually. So he's like,
he can say that
dangerous.
they're friends.
Yeah. So what did you guys think of this issue now? Like, what did you've read the issue? It's out. I mean, how does this holding up? How's the world building going?
I want the bad. I like the bad guy. I need more of him. Do we get more? Can you spoil it? Do we get more?
Oh, you'll get more.
Okay. I really like the bad guy.
Yeah, I thought I did. I'm like, the story must be good because I'm reading issue 3. I'm like, how's he going to fit the rest of this into 2 more
I know. I'm
issues?
thinking like 2 more issues.
I know. I'm like, we need for this should have probably been at least 6.
Is the last one is the penultimate at least a giant size? Or?
No, they're all 20. I mean, these black box books seem to get pretty jam packed full of goodies.
It feels like we're reading like classic comics. Like the joke on our podcast is like modern comics could never, like, everything has to be like written for the trade, even if it doesn't need to be a 3-part story. It's a 3-part story. This feels very well paced.
Good. I think Leo, I think you reached out to me after you lettered the first issue or 2, right? And you were like, you were very complimentary. You were very kind to sort of say the story was pacing itself out pretty well, which was nice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can sort of tell that, like, when something is playing out, that it has been thought through to a degree that makes it fun, right? So it's like I was doing the. We're back to the little workflow stuff and be like, I was doing the balloon placement and all that stuff on this, but it felt natural because the script was easily dictating where the pace was going and how to do it, So, it was definitely compliments to Dan for having thought out the process to make it feel like a lived-in world where, we are sort of dropped into the middle of things here. And we learn as we go along, and that's sort of what's fun about a story. And it was being just talked about in terms of, sort of classic comic storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel the same way too. I sort of pine away for those days where you picked up a issue of Spider-Man or Daredevil or whatever, and that was just like a chapter in the story and not considered to be everything was not so. It didn't have to carry so much of the story a single issue did.
Here's and now crossover for the event to the event. Yeah.
Right. And so as we're sort of seeing with like the new Superman, you can create a world and drop people in it and sort of let people learn as they go along. And that is the fun part of the story. Whereas I feel like sometimes in a lot of these 4, 5, 6 issue miniseries, the first issue is almost
exposition.
Yes, it's all it becomes exposition and setup, and you're like, well, but it's the first issue. I should be having some fun here as well, and not just learning things that I'm going to then maybe have fun with in the rest of the series. And so Rysk is exciting because we get dropped right in, and you just start going. but you're learning as you go along. Why is the world like this? What are these characters' relationships to each other? And those are the hallmarks of kind of classic comic storytelling that I think we're sort of throwing back to.
Yeah, and hopefully it comes across. And I've worked hard, or at least tried to, to reinforce the key things from issue to issue, so nobody feels lost without it getting bogged down. Trying to overcome my old sins, and also realizing the difficulty of just creating so much stuff that has to be covered off on and explained. It's just easier to do it.
I'm really enjoying that action too. Like, I feel like you're making a more of an emphasis on action, and that kind of makes sense for this world. And I really like the raids, the heists, and all the little different things that come with it.
Cool. I think you'll like. I think 4 is out. Is 4 out? Leo, do you know?
4 is out. Yeah,
it is. I don't have
I've
anything.
Seen 4
at
the comic shop.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's more.
And on
more
Global Comics.
Yep. So more good heisty stuff to come, Lilith. Yeah, we got.
Are you having fun with the heisty? I feel like you're having fun with the heisty stuff, and but also you get to throw in your classic high tech stuff too with it in this world. So I feel like you're having fun.
Well,
those
were
do you have to think about it?
Well, those were Demetrius's 2 tenets. So that was I mean, he had more, but the heart of the pitch was a bookie and heist. So I don't know, all right, let's figure that out. Where does that, and how it
has that made it difficult or more or easier for you, to?
No, I think we've talked about that a little bit before, but just you sort of embrace it and you run with it. You try to figure it out. I mean, the new one I'm working on now, which is an alien conspiracy sort of thing, is much the same. It's like there's this and there's that. It's like, okay, well, now make it work and see where it takes you. And that one, I didn't think the pacing was going to work out, because it was so jam-packed full of stuff. But I ultimately, I think, only had to lose one scene so far that was very incidental. It's just sort of nice little dollop of ice cream on top of stuff, and wasn't upsetting it. But no, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, I've really enjoyed this whole storyline, these characters, and doing cliffhangers that feel like they are cliffhanger-ish, but they're also sort of giving enough of a twist each time to sort of want you to advance it, right? Last time we got Mal shows up and he's like, he sort of reverses the story a little bit. Here there's the suspicion things are not what they are going to be, and then you get the confirmation, like in that last shot with Helvid and all of his goons sort of stepping to the fore. So what's that going to mean? So nothing good. Spoiler alert. And but it's they're exactly they feel they quickly became realish characters to me, which was nice. That made it a lot easier to write and get excited by, and want to give them those moments where things are happening, as opposed to just standing around talking.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said this series is getting collected, which again, I mean, that they all do these days, but it's like it's not like a big 2 thing where it's like, oh, it's the middle book, I know it's going to be slow or something, but no, again, the pacing is nice because there's action in each issue, and like we used to get.
Yeah.
Do you feel that is? I don't. I read some modern comics, but not, I guess, as many from the big 2, if you will. I mean, is that a standard thing you find that's?
Oh yeah, the middle almost always lags, and it's almost like
drops?
an editorial mandate. Don't make the middle issue just enough. Give them that big old cliffhanger,
right.
but pull their tooth the whole time to that last page. Honestly,
yeah, not every book and not every series, but it just seems like some of them it's like paint by numbers. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have 6 issues in this trade.
Yeah,
so, drop some action here.
Well, sometimes you do that. This book surprised me. As I paced it out, I had scenes, and then you put the scenes together, and then you had you had character, and so they become more than just, plot devices. So the whole, the grid rush stuff wasn't initially, part of any of the thinking, but I realized I needed to kind of open the story up. I needed to get them to Prague, where I wanted to have the facility they were going to rip up. Demetrios and I had talked about like sort of varying locations, a little bit. I was probably inspired by Prague by that awful Vin Diesel movie where he was a super spy.
Oh, Triple X. But have you actually ever been? Prague is so beautiful because it's like that real old world place. They have it's very Transylvania, like
well, that's where I got
I
got the catacomb stuff from and the tunnels from. But I remember thinking of that Triple X. But then adding in this grid rush thing, which was a good way to talk about the gambling and then get some good action in there. And Leo had actually designed a sports card for the Grid Rush game.
Oh, nice.
We have to.
I'm always fascinated by like fictional sports, like sports in fiction. Like it's one of those things. And so when after doing issue 3 or kind of working on that draft, as I was doing it, I was like, what's the logo for this Grid Rush thing look like? Like what would that and that sort of plays out in how like the lettering was done for like Cy Rodomont.
Right.
Like I reading the script, I heard this guy in my head Gabaja Biamila on American Ninja Warrior, and like that guy be like, and American Ninja Warrior. And that's how I sort of heard like the Cy Rodomont. So I wanted that to come across like, I'm Cy Rodomont, and here we are with the book,
I thought that was a great touch, like how you boosted his volume, by just that little element there.
I wanted to try to make it sportscaster like.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I think you could see the passion that everyone has for this book, like you guys and just everyone working on this thing.
Yeah, that art though, like I was just like, oh, it's so, like, I don't know, like it's very kinetic, and like I feel like modern comics has kind of just lost that. Like a lot of people are just standing around talking in a lot of modern comics, so I can't say how much I appreciate it.
Well, no, that's good. I mean, and I'm always hesitant to criticize because I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I don't know if did somebody write a really action-packed story and then they got talked out of it or talked down from it? Or are people writing a bunch of scenes where
some
people
are just talking over their course of work? You can just see like and it's fine. And I like small character moments, but sometimes sometimes I just open up a comic to see a good guy punch a bad guy because the way the world is, I just need to see a win some way somehow. So.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I mean, it's for sure. Demetrios is very good about that. Make sure there's action. Make sure there's monsters. Not in this book, but
All right, I think we're going to cut it here because I do know Leo has to go soon. So,
Leo, thanks so much for coming on and joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Super great.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's nice to meet everybody and be glad to, just talk about the book. It's been so exciting.
Is there anything you want to promote? Any work coming up, or just anyway, if anyone wants to give you work, anywhere they can get a hold of you? Or
let's see, what am I working on that can be announced right now?
Classic.
I am working on something else for Black Box, but that is not ready to be announced. I just turned in the first draft of the first issue for that earlier in the week. There's 5 is in production.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anything else has been announced quite yet. So, risk number 5. We'll go find
You're welcome to come back to talk about any project you want.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate that.
But if it's on this show, it has to be involved with me. Can we, like?
That's what I was gonna say when he was talking about how you dictate stuff in the script. I said, okay. I was thinking, okay, that's the soundbite for this episode. Dan is an excellent dictator. Okay. But
I'll send you a page of the script. It's it's just making it clear for the for anybody to follow along. What does the sound effect relate to? Where should it go? Sometimes, and I go back to when I was editing. You get things in, and you wouldn't know from the writer, well, what is this? Like a splat. I don't know what that relates to. So let's help it along a little bit or try to.
All right. So yeah, any social media or anything you want to point people to, Leo, or?
Oh, sure. I'm on Instagram, Leo at Lion Lettering, or you could just go to my website, lionlettering.com, and there'll be links to everything. There'll be samples of all the stuff I've worked on so far, and some links to global comics and places to check them out. So yeah.
Very good. All right, and Dictator Dan is there? Wow.
Dictator Dan, sure. Go find Rysk. We're having a lot of fun with it. It's a great book, I would say. You know, a lot of action, a lot of intrigue. 4 issues are now out, as Leo said, on Global Comics. If you don't like your local comic book shop, but I hope you do, and if you do, go check it out there and ask them to order it. If all of that fails for some reason, you can go to blackboxcomics.net, and they've got a good ordering system there where you can get your own copies. If you show up at a convention I'm at, and you bring a copy of Rysk, that first autograph is free. I'll put that out there. I'll be at Dragon Con at the end of the month, so that's a good opportunity to talk and see Rysk in person. If you go to tinyurl.com/AxelsInfernal, you can help back my pre-launch on a Kickstarter. There you go. Supernatural Road
the
Trip.
next one.
I need the next one too.
Guys.
And Carl had some unfortunate health problems, which he's fortunately come through quite well. He had, some real serious stuff going on, but he's doing well. But that's not affecting this so much. But we just need to get those pre-launch numbers where we go. And if you're interested in writing or rambling or both, my book Street Writers, podcast that I did about writing, really tips and tricks, interviews with writers across the genres, on that almost immediately.
Well, your microphone just went way down.
Did it? Did I talk about myself?
Now you're good. Now you're good.
Dropped. All right. Yes, it's StreamYard's doing this weird thing. I'm watching the volume go up and down. I don't know what's happening with it.
See, it's not just me, Phil.
No.
Everyone go out and buy Street Writers because I just bought it. It just came yesterday. No. It was. I think we might have to discuss that on a future episode. So.
Oh, that'd be cool.
We're done with
all
this,
right.
So,
but yeah, guys, this was fun. Good as always, and got me back into waking up on a Saturday morning. So it's good.
Little's like, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Again, thank you, gentlemen. This was a great conversation, and yes, Leo, you're welcome back anytime. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Good to meet everybody.
Thank you, folks. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye. Bye-bye.